Hello, thank you for joining us to learn more information on how to fill out and file the 941X tax form to receive credit for the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, otherwise known as FFCRA. Disclaimer: the information contained here has been prepared by Civitas Strategies and is not intended to constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. The Civitas Strategies team has used reasonable efforts in collecting, preparing, and providing this information, but does not guarantee its accuracy, completeness, adequacy, or currency. The publication and distribution of this information is not intended to create, and receipt does not constitute, an attorney-client or any other advisory relationship. Only non-commercial uses of this work are permitted. Reproduction of this information is expressly prohibited. Today we will discuss completing the 941X tax form for the Families First Coronavirus Response Act credits. The example for completing the 941X tax form for FFCRA credits today only applies to businesses filing credits for individuals who are paid via W-2. Wages for ownership and family members of ownership can be included on the 941X if they were paid via W-2. Businesses where ownership files as a sole proprietor on their 1040 tax forms will not use the 941X and will instead amend their 1040 form using the 1040X form. We will not be reviewing any instances for sole proprietor or 1099 contractors in this video. The example that we're giving here today illustrates the basic filing for the FFCRA credit and is intended for educational purposes only. Always consult with a licensed tax professional with any questions you may have. Here are the preparation steps for completing the 941X form for FFCRA credits. You will need to have your calculations completed by quarter. Following FFCRA rules, you will have calculations completed by applicable quarters starting March 15th, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. All credits are filed quarterly. March 15th through March 31st of 2020 are filed on quarter 2. You will have determined the amount of hours you are claiming for each employee, keeping in mind that you cannot exceed 80 hours per employee from March 15th, 2020 through March 31st, 2021, and you can claim an additional 80 hours per employee from April 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2021. Keep in mind that you will be adding all of the wages for all employees and filing all wages on the one applicable quarter. Now, circumstances allowing for the regular rate of pay, which means either an employee had COVID or had to quarantine due to having COVID exposure, have a cap of $511 in wages per day, which is a cap of 5,110 wages for the entire 80 hours. Circumstances allowing for 2/3 the regular rate of pay, which would be for an employee who cared for either an immediate family member with COVID or whose child's school or daycare provider was closed or unavailable, have a cap of $200 in wages per day, which is a cap of $2,000 in wages for the entire 80 hours. Once you have completed your calculations, you are ready to fill out the 941X tax form. You can locate the 941X form on the irs.gov website. Now, in filling out the form, on page 1 of the form, complete the following. Fill out all identifying information on the top left portion of the form. On the top right, choose the box for 941. Check the quarter you are filing for. Note that credits from March 15th, 2020 through March 31st, 2020 will be filed on quarter 2. Not quarter 1. Enter the calendar year of the quarter you are filing for, which would only be 2020 or 2021, and enter the date you are filing the credit, which would be today's date. You'll then proceed to Part 1. In Part 1, check number 2, Claim, to receive a credit in the form of a check. Please see the next slide for an example. This is page 1 of the 941X form, and as explained previously, you will fill out the identifying information on the top left side of the form. You will check off 941 on the right-hand side. You will check off the quarter that you are correcting, and you will enter the calendar year in which you're correcting, which could only be 2020 or 2021. Regarding the quarter, keep in mind that if you are filing from March 15th, 2020 through March 31st, 2020, you will be filing on quarter number 2. You're going to enter the date that you discovered the errors, which would be today's date. And then for part 1, you will check off number 2, which is claim, meaning that you will receive a check for your credit. Also found on page 1 is part 2. For part 2, you will select number 3 and you will select number 5D. Please see the following slide for an example. Here you will see part 2 of the 941X form. As explained previously, you will check off number 3 and you will check off number 5D. We have now moved on to page 2, part 3. Please note that you must enter your identifying information at the top of each page of the 941X. So at the top of each page, it will ask you for your EIN number as well as other information. Now on page 2, you're going to first go to line 9, and in column 1, you're going to enter the amount of wages that you will be claiming credit for. Now this is a basic example. We're going to leave column 2 blank, and column 3 will reflect the same amount entered in column 1. For column 4, you will multiply the amount that is in column 3 by 0.062. This amount then gets entered as a negative number, which reflects the amount of credit that will be due for adjustment for the employer amount of the Social Security tax withheld. You will carry this negative number to line 23. And note, you will not use this line if filing for credit from March 15th, 2020 through March 31st, 2020. Please see the following slide for an example. Here you can see that we have moved on to line 9 of part 3. In line 9, in column 1, you are going to put the total amount of wages for which you are claiming credit. You will leave column 2 blank, as our example today is a basic example. In column 3, you will repeat the number in column 1, and you will then, for column 4, multiply column 3 by 0.062. You will reflect that number as a negative number. That number on line 9 in column 4 will then be carried to line 23, column 4, which is also reflected as a negative number. Part 3 continued. If you are taking a credit from March 15th, 2020 through March 31st, 2021, you will then address line 25, where you enter the amount of qualifying wages you are claiming as credit. If you are taking the credit from April 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2021, you will address line 26B on the form instead of addressing line 25. For either line 25 or line 26B, in column 1, you will enter the amount of wages. Column 2, in our example, you will leave blank. In column 3, you will carry over the same number from column 1. And then column 4 will be the same number that is shown in column 1 and 3, but as a negative value. Anything in column 4 reflected as a negative value is showing that you are applying for credit for that amount. Now, row 27, column 4 will be the amount that you entered on line 23, combined with the amount that you entered either on line 25 or the amount on line 26B. Again, this is reflected as a negative number, and this is the total amount of credit you are filing for that quarter. Please see the following slide for an example. As discussed on the previous slide, we are now addressing part 3, where we will come up with the total amount of credit to be issued. We will see, as before, we have line 23 is that which shows the amount of the Social Security credit. We would use either line 25 or line 26B to reflect the amount of the FFCRA credit. In our basic example today, because this credit would be claimed between the period of March 15th, 2020 and March 31st, 2021, it will be shown on line 25. In our instance here, we had a $5,000 qualifying wages in column 1. Column 2, we leave blank. Column 3, we carry over the same amount of line column 1. And then in column 4, we have that same number but reflected as a negative. You would then move to line number 27, which will be the total of line 23 combined with either line 25 or by line 26B. Line 35 will only be used if you are claiming a credit from April 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2021. In this instance, you will reflect the wages that you are claiming as credit. You will leave column 2 blank, and then you will put the number in column 3 will be the same number you have put in column 1. This is not a negative value. This is showing the actual wages that were used to calculate the credit. At this point, you have filled out all of the financial information that you will on the 941X tax form, and you will then move to line 43. Line 43 is where you enter your explanation of why you are filing for FFCRA. A sufficient explanation for FFCRA would be qualifying COVID-19 related circumstances triggered Families First Coronavirus Response Act credit, and you will see that example below on line 43. Now you will move on to page 5, part 5, which is the final step of filling out the 941X form. You'll complete part 5 with information as requested, your signature, printed name, title, date, and phone number. For your records, you will make a copy of all 5 pages and retain those. You will also want to keep copies of any payroll documentation that you have, any documentation you have illustrating that employees were out, and any spreadsheets that you used to perform your calculations. Keep those for your records, and you will then mail in all 5 pages of the 941X form by quarter. Each quarter will be mailed separately. You can find the address for your state by visiting the irs.gov website shown on your screen. Thank you very much for joining us today and learning more about how to fill out the 941X tax form for the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Please feel free to reach out to us at cses@civstrat.com with any questions. Thank you.